Welcome back, everybody. I decided to make an episode out of me trying to atone for my past indiscretions. We'll put it that way. A lot of bad decisions were made by me when I sprayed that last batch of color on the sheet metal for old Preparation H here. So I've been busy the last couple of days. I've got the fuel tank sanded down as well as the hood. So we're nice and flat, we're ready for a respray. And I've been doing a wet sanding process. I'll explain that in a minute. But yeah, you can see after you sand these down, all the shine is gone. And this is kind of a special case scenario. We're not doing a full wet sanding demonstration because typically you would wet sand it down, it turns really dull like this, and then you polish what's left and the shine comes back. And we're not doing all that because a complete respray is required for all three of these pieces. I'm about to start on the grill right here. So that's what we used to look like. That's what we'll look like after I go and sand everything back flat. Now, this GoPro has always done very well at picking up the shine. This is a very shiny finish, but the problem is it's extremely rough, or orange peel as they call it. So I think if we look at it from this angle right here, we're starting to pick it up in the viewer. Look at the edges of the shine line right here. And as we move it across, I think you're starting to see how rough and bumpy that whole surface finish is. That's the worst paint job I've ever put on sheet metal, ever. And it all ties back to that series of really bad decisions that I mentioned a minute ago. In hindsight, I shouldn't have even tried to spray that paint when I did, but I was already far too distracted with the new building going in. It was daily emails, phone calls, finalizing details, lining up contractors. But I thought if I could rush the process enough and if I could cut enough corners, I could make it all turn out and I could hit the weather window that I had to spray and I could put that whole hurdle behind me. But I was just, I wasn't watching my paint mix. It was far too thick. Some of the settings on the gun, I should have tried to tune it a little bit better than I did. I was already trying to stretch paint because I knew I was coming down to the end of it and there was no more left available, at least in this state. And well, you make enough bad decisions all in a row, pretty soon those chickens come home to roost. So that's the mess I have to clean up now. So to explain what we're about to do, this top diagram shows the perfect paint job. Nice consistent primer layer underneath, nice consistent thick and smooth paint layer on the surface. Gives you a result like that. I can see myself. The second diagram now is an orange peel finish. So we have our consistent primer layer underneath and we have a thick layer of paint up top, but it's not smooth, it's bumpy. Think of it as peaks and valleys, okay? High spots, low spots, and it can still be shiny, but it's really, really rough. And one way to correct that is to wet sand all of the peaks off, okay? So you can see the dotted lines where we've started to sand the high spots down. And what you want to do is carefully remove paint until you get down to the bottoms of those valleys, all right? And it returns your paint job to this nice, consistent, flat finish on top. That's the goal. And finally, we get down to the squatch diagram, which is where you really don't want to be with a paint job. So we've got a good primer layer underneath. That's just fine. But we've got a very orange peeled finish. And it's a very thin orange peeled finish, okay? So not only was my paint batch way too thick, which means that these peaks are not going to want to settle out into the valleys and the whole thing will lay flat within a few minutes. I also think I had a reducer that was evaporating way too fast for the temperature at which I was spraying outside, which further exacerbates that peak to valley problem. And I was trying to stretch paint because I knew I was coming down to it, so I just threw a really light coat on. So now, when I wet sand it, by the time I get the peaks off, the valleys are pretty much at primer level. And that's what you see right here on top of the fuel tank. You see that dark spot here? Let's, a little bit of water makes it show up a lot better. That's primer. That's primer. We've got quite a bit of primer that started to show through by the time I finally smoothed all of that orange peel off. And I pretty much knew that going into it, is why I had already decided these were going to need a respray. Thankfully, Levi found us the paint. We've got all the paint that we need. So now we're being pretty aggressive. We're just sanding all this stuff down flat. And It gets a little bit dark down through here. I was pretty light. Yeah, it's we're not trying to save the paint anymore. We're just trying to create a nice flat surface finish that we can scuff up and we can throw some more color over the top of. So we'll get busy on the grill. It's about to lose all of its shine, but as soon as I do the first wet sand, I think you'll be able to see the high spots even better than you can right now. To start, this is water with a few drops of car wash soap. You don't need much at all. And a wet dry sandpaper, I'm using a 1000 grit. You always want to pre-soak that. And we'll throw some of that water up on the top here. That's where we're gonna start. For most of the stuff, the flat parts anyway, I've been using kind of a foam semi-flexible block, but I can tell already the slats and stuff down there I'm gonna have to just do by hand. But this is pretty forgiving, really, this whole process. So just start making some circles, and the water with the soap actually lubricates. It makes it easier to sand, plus it traps all the dust. Okay, you don't have near the mess. Eventually that little jug of water I have here is going to turn pink, but all right, you can see on the sandpaper, that's paint. And if you had any doubts, that's all paint, see? But that's dust that is not going in the air. So I'll dry this off, and then you'll surely be able to see that orange peel finish that I was talking about. And right here, back to the peaks and valleys, all of the dull spots are the high peaks that we're taking down with the sandpaper. All the shiny spots, those are the low valleys that we haven't got down to yet. We're just about where we need to be right in here. That's where I concentrated most of my sanding. We've just got a few little shiny dots left in there. So yeah, we just need to work that a little bit more and then just continue on, just taking all those peaks, working them down into the valleys, and we'll be just about at primer level. But yeah, we'll have nothing left to polish and save, but we'll at least have a smooth surface so we can lay fresh coat of color down on. Rounded edges like this, I do by hand. It doesn't pay to try to use the block. Also, accent lines like this raised rib that goes up the top, I'll get right down into the corner by hand, and I'll also do the rounded top portion of it as well. Okay, upper portion finished, and just like the other two pieces, we're starting to get some primer showing through. There's just not enough of a paint layer there to even save. So we've been washing plenty of paint down the side, and we're ready to change the water. It might look like Kool-Aid, but trust me, it isn't. So I'll replace that, and it's going to be a lot of manual work getting through all those slats. So I'll just turn the camera off, and we'll get it done. All right, wet sanding is complete, so we're back to a smooth surface for the next coat of paint. Another step we need to do now, because we're still pretty shiny back here, and we're still pretty shiny, we haven't really touched with the sandpaper along the edge of that accent line. I'll take this Scotch-Brite pad. Now this is close to a 600 grit, but this is really good for getting into all those spots where the sandpaper wouldn't reach. Plus, I'll do a once-over of everything on all three of these pieces. That's just going to scuff it up and give it a little bit better tooth, if you will, for that the next coat of paint to adhere to. If you have too flat or shiny of a surface, another coat of paint might not want to stick. It'll start lifting around the edges. Here's like another instance right here, really shiny. I didn't really touch those areas around the radiator cap port with the sandpaper, so you just go and scuff that up with the Scotch-Brite just until that shine is gone, the dull matches the rest of it. So that's what we do. Give everything else another once over. And one final step, and then we'll finally be done. We need to wash all the dust off of the grill, the hood, and the fuel tank. You can even see on the backside how much that water washed all that that pink colored dust all over everything. We need to get all of that stuff off. All right, everyone, we're ready for a second attempt at paint. The final step right before I spray will be wax and grease remover and a lint-free rag, and we'll just make sure there aren't any fingerprints or any residual soap or anything on any of the pieces. Now, I'll be absolutely honest with you all. Tomorrow is the day that I've been aiming for to try another paint batch. And the last 3 days, the weather report for tomorrow has declined each day to the point where it's going to be a judgment call tomorrow whether or not I spray. And remember, cutting corners is what got us to where we are right now. So no more of that. If I decide the conditions are just not right, I don't spray. And I don't think I'll have another opportunity until next spring, the way the weather has been turning. So also, just to get ahead of the comment section, because every time I discuss the difficulties of spraying outside, I have multiple comments talking about inflatable paint booths and trying to mask off and spray inside the shop. I'll just say none of those are happening. Years ago, Senior and I both agreed we're not spraying paint inside the shop. We've both had experience working in shops where painting was also done, overspray gets on everything, and it just turns into a mess. And then it's there forever. So it won't happen inside this building. Inflatable paint booths, I've looked into them. They're several $100s. They're not cost prohibitive, but they have blower fans that circulate the air through them, and they still need to exit or exhaust the fumes and the overspray out vents that blast out each side. So once again, that's not going to work inside this building because you're still going to be putting the mess everywhere. So once again, you're back to being outside, and temperature is our major limiting factor. So inflatable paint booths aren't something they're going to work either. And that's okay. We're to the point where this tractor has no timeline. It can be wrapped up whenever conditions allow. I would love to show you all fresh, new, shiny red paint next episode, and we can button it up and get it out of the shop. If that doesn't happen, we've got a whole winter's worth of X231 work sitting over there. As much as I am not looking forward to that, that's just how things are going to work. And also in the comment section, people are asking, like, when are we going to get to Rock Crusher? Or when are we going to do the narrow Caterpillar RD6? Next summer, after we make sure the H is done, and I can't stand looking at X231 anymore, there will be a content switch. It'll either be Rock Crusher or narrow RD6 because both would be good for the channel, and both have about the same amount of viewer support behind them. So expect movement on one of those fronts, at least, come spring. So just one final bit before I let you all go. I want to send a shout out to one of our Australian super fans, Jeff Parkin. He's got a birthday coming up on the 16th of this month. Happy 75th, my friend. I hear he never misses an episode, sometimes watches them more than once, which, hey, Senior and I definitely approve. But seriously, without support from the viewers, none of this would happen. None of it would even be possible. And huge thanks, Jeff, buddy. I hope you enjoy your day. And I also hope you all enjoyed the episode. Tomorrow, we will make a decision. Either that's going to turn shiny, or it'll be more X231. Only Mother Nature can say at this point. However it goes, I hope to see you all back.